The riots are connected to Pizzagate. The NFL is connected to Pizzagate. The state of California is connected to Pizzagate. The continent of Europe is connected to Pizzagate. Oh, well, what are you going to do about One day.
Hi everyone, welcome to the Portal to Justice, the window to the truth. This is your host, Amelia Duran. It is July 23rd, 2018, and that was Pizzagate, written and composed by Zeph Daniels. You can find his music on Spreaker.com, Zeph Daniel Music. Okay. Lotus called me this morning. You got it. We got to go live. You're the Baba Booey. What's the Baba Booey? Oh, man. Okay. Sad state of affairs. I posted this morning a link to Investigators Bring Awareness on Oprah.com. She interviews Florida child abuse cop for basically foster trafficking. He was a foster parent who was raping and molesting these foster children. And he was a police officer, and he was arrested and charged 10 counts of rape and molestation on foster boys. So Oprah has Chuck McMullen on her show raising awareness about this is what's so backwards and upside down about these people. And we can't have a society and culture based on shame. This is so sick and upside down. They want to normalize this dysfunction, and we have a society that's basically perpetuating the trafficking and the victimization, the pedophilia, and it's hard. It's hard, but if we really want to stop the war on drugs and stop suicides, we need to stop raping and shaming the children, creating this culture of shame. It's outrageous, and so we need to stand up. We need to be adults and stand up to this bullshit in our society is basically my beef in the Porthole to Justice and social media news network. None of this gets reported on. And then we have Dr. Phil, who is the public relations person for CASA, court-appointed special advocates that do absolutely nothing. It's total fake agency, and they do not help teenagers transition that age out of the system. This is a total just good for nothing. It is Dr. Phil sits on the board of Child Protective Services as the public relations person and of CASA. And people just need to see things clearly for what they are. These people are aiding and abetting child trafficking and the corrupt courts. There's no good way of putting it. So I guess Lotus called me this morning, and she's wanting to start a movement. It sounds good to me. If it's for we the people, by we the people, it sounds good to me. Let's see what she has to say. Let's get her on the phone. Gung-ho this morning. Standing by, Lotus. I may have to resume this. Well, I'll talk a little bit. Alright. Lotus, I'm live on the air. You gotta call me. You gotta call me on Skype. Stand by, guys. Okay. Maybe she'll be calling us back. So, okay. Hi. Are you here with me?
Can you hear me?
Hi. Yeah, we're live.
Oh my gosh. Okay, hold on. We are having the worst possible time. Right now, I'm looking at a screenshot of Skype saying, oops, something went wrong. like literally. We are already having interference, Madame. How are you today?
I'm good. You know, I woke up and I published some stories about Oprah interviewing a indicted and convicted child molester foster parent on her show. And then we have the likes of Whoopi Goldberg completely losing her composure on The View. And and absolutely, you know, no accountability at all for her poor form. And then we have Roseanne Barr, who lost her sitcom.
Yeah, I did a post on that.
For a tweet.
Okay, here's my thought. Roseanne Barr was conscious enough to realize that she's a stressed individual and went to a doctor and got medication for that. And she has an Ambien-laced tweet of a woman that she thought that wasn't even black, that suddenly she's a racist. And she loses her show, and so do a lot of other people. Here's the point. A lot of other people had their contracts violated by ABC. See, that's kind of my point here in this respect. So we have a 3 a.m. Ambien tweet about a woman that she professes to not even know she was black, which I could see where a lot of people could see that Valerie Jarrett wasn't black. I would think she was, of some type of Mediterranean descent, though. But that's just from her look. You know, that's Americans are very mixed. It's hard to tell in America, right? But she's saying I didn't think she was black. And then you have Whoopi Goldberg, who clearly needs medicated, in my opinion, and needs mentally evaluated because she basically verbally assaulted someone on national television who was invited to the arena that they were in. And it was just bad decorum, which we've talked about before, and nothing. So with Roseanne's situation, so apparently it's okay to call someone racist and or be a bigot in that respect. But if you're just generally rude in a sense, a social sense, that's okay. So racism is a taboo, which is along the same lines of how it undermines a civil society, which is the point. You know, racism undermines a civil society. So if racism justifies the firing of not only Roseanne Barr, but the imposition of firing a whole lot of other people who are in contract. I mean, I bet the attorneys are just having a heyday because they're making so much money right now. I mean, with the Roseanne Barr show, every attorney is making a lot of money while all of the artists are not. You have to remember that. Because I'm sure that artists are going, wait a minute, we had a contract here. You can't fire me because of her personal actions, which is what I would be doing if I was one of those other actors, which is why they had to float the new season, you know, the show. They had to give them a little carrot. So if it's about social decorum, basic civil discourse, apparently on a live show in the middle of the day, is, you know, that being rude, like overtly rude, and not only just being rude, but kind of conveying a violence, a vitriol towards someone. That's okay. Yeah, that's not only okay. It's fairly. It's just that we're going to accept it. So racism as a form of social destabilization is so abhorrent. You fire this person, and you just get rid of the totality of everything they are, and you actually harm other people that Roseanne's particular words may have harmed too, right? Mm-hmm. But when it comes to Whoopi, it's just fine. It's fine. And I think the distinction is you know, Whoopi's a black liberal female, and Judge Jeanine Pirro's not. She's a quote, you know, I would perceive her as a woman of ethnicity. If people want to put the word color in there, that's fine. But I would think that most people would think that Judge Jeanine is at least colored, as we've talked about before, in her look, in older race. She has a color to her. She is not Caucasian, white, waspy looking. If we want to use those racist terms too.
I want to talk about this word race And these people in Congress,
which is in itself racist,
that no longer represent we, the American people. These individuals in Congress do not care about race. They don't care what they care. They care about their rights for them.
They care about
when they talk about race and they use race as a political weapon to divide the people, they are not talking about the human race. The people that think logically and rationally, the people that value human life. They're not talking about human race, okay? So let's just be clear on that. And the other thing is I want to ask you if you could enlighten us about the color of law.
Yeah, because we've talked about how the biggest problem here is that the propagandists, the fascists, the Bolsheviks, the Marxists, actually they're anti-Marxists. They're not Marxists. If you've studied Marxism, you believe that Marx believed in the natural evolution. And his thesis was based upon the natural evolution of economic foundations or economic systems evolving because we are righteous people, that we would evolve through a natural cycle into utopian communism where all men are equal and all men have a right. Now, I'm going to tell you right now, the only country in the world that has the foundations to evolve because it was founded upon these principles into communism is the United States of America. So let's just get that fact. Because we're the only country in the world. We are the only country in the world where all people are created equal as an unalienable right from our Creator. We are the only country that actually espouses the concepts of utopian communism, which is a sociological ideology of the United States that the United States put into being, into words, where all men are equal. All men and women and children, all are equal. That means the government's not bigger than you, the state's not bigger than you, the county, the sheriff, no one in special titles of nobility uniforms that actually are your servants of the state. People who are supposed to serve you because you appoint them to executize and who administrate and trusteeship your estates. Those people are not above you.
So I want to just use an example. A friend of mine got banned today for 60 days on Facebook.
For what? I got banned for 30. Can't even post.
He posted a photograph of a unicorn cake that said faggot on it. Now,
was it something she purchased herself?
Now, I just want to, if these are not declarations, if we can no longer have an opinion or, if these aren't declarations of war, I don't know what is. If you want to cut off, think of it this way. The phone company contacts you and tells you, we're going to ban you for 60 days for something that we found offensive in your conversation that you had with Joe last week. So we're going to ban your business phone line for 60 days.
Right. Okay.
And right. No. I just want to, and I just want to say to all the listeners that are listening to our show right now, Facebook is located in California, so they are under the jurisdiction of the Federal Communications, the FCC. And I encourage everybody, they need to comply. They need to be in compliance and regulated, just like any other communication platform that we have.
Right. Okay. So you're feeding right into what I was doing when you called. So I got banned from Facebook. We talked about it this morning. I got banned from Facebook for defending someone's right to exercise the Fourth Amendment, however they see fit, when someone is unlawfully, feloniously assaulting them. It was a situation where there was a video with a young man who was in I would say a convenience store, and I think he had a gun, but I think he also had a knife. But in any case, he was armed, deadly. He had deadly force. Knives can kill. And he was threatening everyone in the room, and he proceeds on the video. They have a video. He's threatening at least 4 people looking, you can see from the camera. And he proceeds to start tearing stuff apart, probably because the guy says, we're not giving you any money. And then he's jumped, and they beat him down. And someone's like, oh, this is egregious that they beat that man so badly. And I'm like, he's a criminal by the law. When you deny equity, you can't presume it. So basically the point of law is, in that respect, from law, if you go into someone's house and you trespass on their property, you destroy their property, and you feloniously assault them with a deadly weapon, you have the right by the Fourth Amendment to exercise equal force and measure. And so if you were threatened, if you feel that your life is threatened, you can kill the man. That's the law. Okay? He comes on your property, he destroys your property, he trespasses, and then he torts you, he threatens you with the deadly weapon. You can kill him if you feel threatened enough. So equal measure, equal force. So you can stab him to death with his own knife, okay? Or you can beat him, which is a lesser tool. For people to say that we should not beat down criminals who come into our house and felonious assault us, and that we're bad people for exercising our Fourth Amendment rights, is actually, in my mind, repugnant and promoting violence in society. Now, I didn't report the comments on my page that this guy was saying that in defending ourselves and our property, we should allow people to beat us, and that's promoting violence. I didn't report that. But the way these, quote, and they would call themselves liberals, but they're really just fascists. What he was upset about is they didn't just politely take this criminal into the law and give him to the states of men, who would then do nothing with it, probably. But he didn't like the fact that there was actually law on the street where people defend themselves against criminality. A person wanted to intercede or someone to intervene and to be our daddies in that conversation, that I have a right to defend myself. So I'm defending the right of people to have the Fourth Amendment right, and because of the manner in which I do it, I'm deemed as promoting violence in our society by Facebook under their community standards. So I'm defending my Fourth Amendment right on my Facebook page to violently, up to the point of killing someone, defend myself in my house and my property from having my property trespassed, my property damaged, and my life threatened. Mm-hmm. And I'm the one that gets banned from Facebook for 30 days for promoting violence in society. Okay? So it doesn't surprise. So I'm calling, in my mind, the FCC.
Are you there? Uh-oh. We got interrupted. Are you there?
I'm sorry.
Oh, okay.
I'm there. So I'm on the line with the FCC. A couple things. Did you know that if you call the FCC, that the FCC only takes informal, you have to listen to the words, informal complaints over the phone? That you can't even get a formal complaint form from the FCC on their website or through the mail. I have the recording. Mm-hmm. You can't call the FCC and get a federal form from the FCC except by email. You can't print it off the internet. You can't get it at a P.O. box. Now, that right there is a crime. That right there is obstructionism. Then the FCC, whose mission statement is thus, I'm going to read this. The Federal Communication Commission regulates interstate and international communications by radio, television, wire, satellite, and cable in all 50 states, the District of Columbia, and U.S. territories. An independent U.S. government agency overseen by Congress. So they're not even commercial, which is why they probably won't send you their forms over the mail, because then if it's fraud, if they affect fraud, then they get charged with wire fraud. Get it? They get additional postal fraud. So the only reason that the FCC would not be willing to give you a formal complaint form over the internet or over the mail, or to allow it on the internet so you could print it down, mind you, formal, which, by the way, found out that if you fill out a formal complaint form, it costs you money. So what you're actually doing if you file a formal complaint with the FCC is actually filing a civil action, which the FCC doesn't even defend you in, folks. This is your government. This is your government. Okay? If you know what questions to ask and listen to the words that these people tell you, you're going to find out that you've been your government has been subcontracted out to a bunch of corporate entities who are merely the same bar union attorneys affecting coups all over your government. The FCC has told me this. We don't take complaints about Facebook because we only care and have a jurisdictional jurat, according to this woman, on not on the internet, just the providers of internet service. Now, I read you the FCC mission statement, right? Mm-hmm. It's supposed to be protecting national and international communications on assets of the United States. And yet somehow Facebook and people who affect commerce on the internet are completely exempt from FCC regulation. Now, I said, well, what about if it was over the phone? She said, well, if they were engaged in fraud. I said, well, if Facebook is putting itself out as a public company as a public utility, using public utilities, use the internet, public utility. So they're using public utilities to affect commerce, just like the phone company, just like, people who call. If I have people harassing me on the phone, affecting fraud over the phone, I call the FCC. I call the FTC too. They have a liaisonship. But if it's someone affecting commerce on the internet, such as Facebook, and they're affecting crimes against the United States by alienating people's constitutional rights, the FCC says it has no jurisdiction. I said, well, would you provide me with a statute that exempts these corporations that are operating on public utilities and affecting fraud from your jurisdiction? And I got hung up on. I swear to God. She said, well, the people who are training this. I said, I understand that. I want to know who told you to tell me what you're saying to me and provide me the statute that exempts Facebook and every corporation affecting commerce on the internet from fraud claims. Mm-hmm. And I got hung up on it. And it just says online, the FCC is a private corporation. See, this is what it says right here. Go to www.fcc.gov/about/overview. Put FCC mission.
Well,
an independent.
It just seems to me, Lotus, that we're way past the point. We're way past the point of waiting for things to be logical and reasonable again. We are at the point to where we need to adult, and we need to make these things happen.
Let's talk about that. Because every time I call these, and I told them when I said, you do realize that the FCC is disenfranchising everyone who doesn't have a computer or can't get to a computer.
They're disenfranchising anybody that is identified as a Trump supporter or far-right.
Just anybody who's for a republic. The fact that you have an agency of the government that won't send you a form in the mail and you can't print the form off the internet. She said, we're going green. I said, well, if green means socialism, you're not very socialistic because you've disenfranchised a whole bunch of Americans.
I want to talk about this because we have a lot of activists. We have a lot of activists out there, Lotus, that are, toting the Bible to misrepresent, it's like and to affect softism or yeah.
They're trying to turn. I'm going to tell you right now. They've torn these following words: color, law, and race, racism. They've torn a couple of select words that they use for racism, which where I come from, and by definition, don't mean what they mean.
And racism, folks, the division does not benefit us, we the people. It benefits them, okay? These are political tools to war upon the people and play on your emotions to legislate into law their corruption.
What is our motto? United we stand, divided we fall. Fascism takes black against white, man against woman, child against parent, husband against wife, republic. Their point is,
and it removes here key thing. It removes your ability to speak freely.
Absolutely, to speak freely and to hash through definitions. For example, we talk about the word color. If I say someone's colored, they're racist because they presume when I use the word colored that I'm speaking derogatorily at a person of a different skin tone to me. I'm not trapped in the flesh. Yes, there is different tones of flesh. I lack color. I'm very white, right? I'm like, northern, Scottish, white. But I tan really well. I just burn, so I'm not into tanning because it's a painful process, but I can get very brown, right? I can get the color of my lips, which are very dark. So I have the ability to look colored, but it just doesn't suit my pigment, right? It's painful, right? Some people can go out in the sun, and I have a friend who's Basque. His family, he's American, but his heritage is 100% Basque, which is of Spanish royalty. They are the old Spanish royalty. And he is white, but when he goes in the sun, he looks, he is the dark, they think he's Hispanic all the time, unfortunately, for what he does, as far as for people. He works with the homeless people. So he's deemed a poor, disenfranchised, homeless Hispanic man all the time, right? He's this white, purebred, Basque Spanish dude, right? And so he deals with the racism ingrained in the state agents who think because he's dark-skinned, walking around in the alleys, he must be a homeless, black-colored man. He deals with the misperceptions of color. I get that. But when I speak colored, I'm talking in law, which means you have a particular oath. You have a particular opinion and leaning. That they have obfuscated, and I'm not undermining the use of color to divide us, but the word color also means something in law that has nothing to do with skin tone. It's called the color of law. And we can't even talk about people who are colored under the law without the race baiters thinking that the word, because they're stupid, because that's really all they are, and they're racist, has only one meaning. So if we can't argue the definitions we're speaking of in mutual civil discourse, then we can't ever trespass the divide. So if you have an irrational, delusional, what did Judge Janine call it? The Trump something syndrome? I can't remember what she called it. She has a name for it. But
Trump derangement syndrome.
Because they literally are psychotic in the way they're behaving. They're triggered by, the word Trump, which, Revelation speaks about stuff like this. But, these people are triggered and lose all concepts of reason, such as Whoopi Goldberg did, and violently and with venom attack others based upon a word, based upon the mention of a man's name. Because, and I'm going to tell you, what that's called? That's called social programming. That person is a Manchurian candidate. Whoopi Goldberg has bought into the hysteria of her own propaganda and the people she surrounds herself, which are all fake news. And they're hysterical. They're hysterical people. They don't care about fact. I think Judge Janine showed that. She doesn't care about fact. She's just triggered by words. And so that's what attorneys do. Attorneys at law, attorneys at law, as propagandists, as administrators of these criminal banks called courts that we have now in the Article 3s. These are not courts, folks. These are private jurisdictional bankruptcy banks that are unregulated by the Treasury, affecting civil forfeiture in everything they do. Everything the American I don't even call American, but the United States administrative courts do in their current function and form is criminal under the Constitution. They are affecting peonage and slavery. They are foreign jurisdictional unregulated banks affecting one-sided bankruptcy claims in violation of the 14th Amendment, and they're affecting fraud upon the statutes and upon the treasury. In this world, everyone in this world is in a heap of trouble. We have a serious problem. We are being run by criminals, and we didn't know it.
And
we didn't know they were criminals.
We need accountability. We need to have this public conversation about the trafficking of American children.
Absolutely. And so here's what's happening in their government. The Democrats are it's not about Democrats and Republicans. I'm going to tell you a quick story here that I can convey to you from personal experience. I used to work in politics. I used to organize grassroots. I used to be a Democrat. I was a registered Democrat till I realized there is no party. It's them and us. And I remember this very poignant conversation. I just got out of a meeting because I ran 7 wards for the Ohio Democratic Party. For the Kerry campaign. I ran the 7 central corridor wards that run buttress up against the High Street, which is the capital of the state of Ohio, is on High Street. I ran the 7 wards just north of the university. In the most affluent region of the city that had voted Republican its totality of its history, and I turned it what we called progressive Democrat, because we didn't like the Democrats and we didn't like the Republicans. We wanted law. We wanted truth. We entered that those 7 wards. The people who work for me wanted there to be. They knew that the last election was fraudulent, and they only agreed to work for the Kerry campaign if his campaign managers agreed that if there was fraud, they wouldn't see. And guess what? They seeded the state of Ohio with open fraud in less than 3 hours, and that told me John Kerry's organization was merely criminal. Because they promised everyone who worked for them in the state of Ohio that if there was 1 ounce, so John Kerry's a fraud, the people who work for him are fraud. They promised the people of Ohio if there was criminal indications of gerrymandering or election fraud in Ohio, that he would not cede the state. Dude didn't care. You know what? He got paid with? He ceded the state. Right, of Ohio. He ceded the election. Don't you know now he's the Secretary of State from the Democratic Party? And here's how it happened. I'd come out of a meeting which indicated that there was some hinky stuff going on in both parties, right, in the upcoming election. We're very concerned about it. And an established elder in the Democratic Party for Ohio, who was a black man, says, I don't know what you're so upset for. We'll win next time. And so the attitude for the people who work in the system is they don't really care what the American people are feeling or dealing with on a daily basis. To them, it's all about one of us will get it. One of us will win. What are you upset about? So to them, they don't care. They don't care.
My whole thing is, though, Lotus, how can we have a system of shame run by pedophiles and pedivores?
Pedivores, right?
Not expect to have a war on drugs. Not expect to have suicides.
Well, that just serves them. That's what I'm trying to explain. So,
where are all of the adults standing up and saying no, we can't have?
I'd like to know where all the righteous men are. That's I'm sitting there going, where are all the men that are going to stand up unified?
I've been looking for one for 7 years now.
Where are they? I know they're out there. I mean, but here's the problem. You know what we're asking all those righteous men to do? We're asking those righteous men to point out the reprobate men. And they're not really programmed to do that. Men are kind of programmed to stick with the men. We have a team It's a football team. And it's okay if the quarterback's the only one getting the fame because we're all men here. It's okay if we all work as a group to make one man famous. And that's what men are taught. Men are groomed to surrender corruptions of groups of men. You know, they're not taught to stand up.
Yeah.
And women are taught to never cooperate and to always lambaste each other. Did you see how she wears her skirt so high? And her neck, her boobs are always showing when she wears those shirts. And my husband looks at her. And you know, and always target the other women. So women are taught to never.
We can always attack people's character and slander and target and
right.
You know, all of these tactics. But that's all they are. That's all they are. They're not substantiated. They're not rooted in anything. It's an allegation. It's an allegation.
Right. Well, they're not even allegations. If they had allegations, they'd say, okay, I watched the Sunday morning. I love to watch CBS Sunday morning. And I remembered it was, you know, what time it was on, just a little too late. And so I had the TV on a little too late, and Face the Nation came on. And I had to listen to all these talking head tarts and twats sit and say, this, that, and the other thing. And I sat and watched, you know, our illustrious John Kerry, who I've met. I have pictures with the guy. Anyone wants to claim I don't know the guy, I can show you graphic evidence that I have talked to the guy. Okay? I worked for his campaign. And I watched this schmuck say, literally, the quote was, Donald Trump cannot handle the business of the United States. Well, I'm sitting there going, oh, wait, we have 4% growth. What business was he talking about? You know what I'm saying? What?
He's talking about the kids for cash business, Lotus.
That's exactly. I'm like, what business are you talking about, dude? The fact to penalize our growth is so good.
He's only built his global empire on mergers and acquisitions. I'm wondering, what business could they possibly be talking about?
Marrying Teresa Hines didn't hurt. I mean, marrying the heir to the Hines fortune didn't hurt either, folks. You have to understand, these oligarchs, we have American oligarchs. They're called the elite that have been hand-selected because of their familial associations with the old world folks. And their families are, they are the heir of the European industrialists. You have to understand, America is under bankruptcy because the industries that traded with both sides of the war said they were harmed by the world wars and sued the United States corporation and the American people for loss of commerce. The bankruptcy of the United States was facilitated by claims of the industrialists. Okay, so I'm sorry, you made money during the war by selling gas and cars. Okay, our cars were sold to Germany. Okay, there were United States corporations selling gasoline, vehicles, and planes to the Allied forces and Germany at the same time, folks, during World War II. Those companies said they lost money during our war. And we are responsible for the loss of their commerce as the American people. People don't understand that the industrial engine that makes money from both sides of war are the facilitators and the holders of the bankruptcies. These people are criminal. These are multinational, criminal, international organizations that are multinational in scope, but they're all owned by the same people, and they're all run by the same unions. They're all esquires. They're esquires from Britain. They're esquires from Italy. They're esquires from America. And they're all conspiring to steal the wealth of the people of this world for their old oligarch bloodlines. Okay, did anyone know? I mean, John McCain is married to, he's married to a famous heir. John Kerry's married to a famous heir. Do we need to, I mean, seriously.
Well, let's talk about Bernie Sanders' wife, who is the social youth and services supervisor.
Right.
For child protective services.
Exactly. They're used
is fraudulently human trafficking are children.
Well, that's all socialism. We all get a little piece of your little baby boy, don't you know?
So back in 2015, she was being investigated by the FBI, and I ran a piece on my blog in Porthole to Justice on the corruption. So I'm nobody likes me. If you're involved in any capacity in corruption and you work for Child Protective Services, I will be covering the story. I will be. That's just the nature of my blog. I'm not right or left. I don't identify with any political boxes. Okay, I don't like them.
I'm for the law.
Yeah,
you're for the law.
You're for the law. I'm for the law. Exactly. I'm
gonna tell you something.
You're my favorite person.
When it comes to adults, okay, I'm going to tell you people. First off, animals love me. Then I've had people who have had wolves for pets say, "Oh my gosh, that wolf never does that with people," because animals know that I have no malice towards innocence. I exude that in my energy. Children come, they run. Okay, but if you're an adult, I'm going to slam you into the bowels of hell if you're stupid and you seem to promote or want to even think about disenfranchising innocent children. I will tear you to shreds, and I will strip you bare to the depths of your soul if you say one word out of line. And I'm okay with that, because if I go to my Maker saying everything I did was to defend the innocent, guess what? I'm going to get into heaven. I promise you. I got a special place in heaven. I promise you. Because I don't mince words. Amelia's really nice. Amelia's got more candor. I'm brash. I'm real. I'll tell it like it is, because the law's clear.
You bring the law. You bring the law to my arguments. So you bring the, what is it? You bring the muscle.
Wash. That's a good point to be made, because that's a good point to be made.
The thing is, Lotus, is I can speak to all of the corruption within the system, and Child Protective Services is an unregulated government agency that is absolutely involved in the illegal human trafficking of, I think it's, 24 million or 40. Oh, right. Shoot. I don't want to misquote.
It's in the millions. I've already told you. I think it's funny that I've been saying millions. Now there's actually numbers.
I made a mem, and I put the exact figures, but even those can vary. I think last week the statistics were changed for the amount of children aging out of the foster care system, or children going into human trafficking, prostitution, because they're basically groomed in the foster care system.
That speaks to Whoopi Goldberg.
So 80% of the children that are involved in human trafficking come from Child Protective Services.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You ripped it out from its foundation. That's the whole point of it.
Well, and these children get objectified the moment they get placed into these placements with these homes.
Grace just told me today she's preparing herself that Clay's not alive anymore. That Clay's we're never seeing him again. People don't understand that these children are disappeared. There are children murdered that were conveyed.
If they do live, folks, they're committing suicide. They're on drugs because they live in shame. They've been deprived of their roots. I have to get espresso. Okay, you've thrown children into hell. The state has under the law, the United States nor the states of X have any jurisdiction on children. That is the law. Okay? That's not debatable. Now, under statutes, they're coming in with force of guns and tyranny and taking and seizing children from terrorized families. And they're not even doing that under the statutes. People don't understand. This is Nazi Germany. We are in Nazi Germany, and they are stealing babies with uniformed police from parents, and they are disappearing them. And they're selling them in
trafficking them in America. It's not just Mexico. The babies coming across the border happen to just be thrown. I mean, they even have reports now of people who aren't parents bringing babies to the border and just giving them to the border. Okay, you know what that's called? Human trafficking.
And some of my critics would say, well, you're just on Facebook posting a bunch of, memes, Lotus. I'm just on Facebook posting a bunch of memes.
They don't know you very well, do they? They don't know you. They have no idea that you and I have lived through what we're talking about.
Yeah.
They have no idea.
Well, they have no idea that you have 14 filings in the court and that we are actively fighting this. And what that involves, how that affects our lives personally, how we're censored and we're...
The money that takes is the bigger point. Because Ray's not rich. Ray's family is one of the people that would be Jesus's folks.
Let's talk about getting a lawyer to get your child back after Child Protective Services takes them into custody. Do you know that the average cost to retain a good lawyer in juvenile court is $25,000, which is basically the amount.
In Ohio, it's nothing.
Yeah.
That makes sense in California or Texas. But let me tell you about Ohio here. It's $5,000 here, right? I have spoken to 2 family members who've had their children stolen through CPS, and the possibilities of fraudulent claims against the state itself and the counties and the CPS workers is so bad in the northern part of Ohio. Cleveland, Toledo, the border between pedo Canada and America, where 25 years ago we have video evidence of FBI agents putting children into vans and trucking from orphanages and trucking them across the border to Canada. It's 25 years ago, folks. FBI involvement in criminal trafficking of children across the border. Toledo, Ohio, that border. The criminal conspiracy and activities in the CPS courts are so bad, there aren't any family law attorneys that will take a CPS case, even if the family has $5,000 to put down that day. They can't get an attorney to defend against the corrupt systems in this state. They can't hire them. Because the attorneys know that they'll have to either commit fraud or get killed defending their client. Mm-hmm. That's what it is here, folks. No one's telling the truth here except us. This is not new. Y'all are just being brought into you're in the know now. If you're listening to this show, you're in the know. That's what we should call our new show. In the know, Amelia. Let's call it In the Know.
Well, I do have the Social Media News Network, and I would be interested in a movement for we the people, by we the people, that represents we the people, that would speak to some of these issues in regards to the race card and the censorship on Facebook and Facebook not complying with FCC laws. That would speak to some of the insanity that is being opposed on we the people, that does not speak for we the people.
Well, guess what's going to happen because of my conversation with the FCC? And this is, in all the time I have. And this is what people don't understand. I'm going to file a formal complaint against the FCC with the OIG's office. Because the fact that Facebook is allowed to operate fraudulently and deny me my constitutional rights and affect commerce in the process with their little programs on the side, and that the FCC won't even touch them because some miraculous, and I said, provide me the memo. I mean, where'd you get, because from what I can see in the law, the FCC does regulate Facebook. It does regulate commerce on the internet if it's affected fraud.
I have also,
violation of law.
I've also, if you're tuning in and listening to the show, I've posted a change.org link to my main Facebook profile to demand that social media companies end censorship of alternative voices online. And you can go to my personal Facebook page and click on that link and sign that petition.
Well, I'm going to tell everybody this real quickly, because when I get the FCC formal complaint, we're going to post it online, Amelia. I actually, in order to even get this was like, because see, this is what happens in prison, folks. See, when you run through prison, you understand the layers of obstruction, which is criminal conspiracy against rights, when you know the law. Okay, when the FCC, when I have to bitch to an FCC phone operator and refuse to give her my email address and say, no, I want a formal form, and she actually can't even direct me to the agency and can only make a complaint to some amorphous individual she can't even give me the name or the direct number to, and gives me a ticket number because I requested a formal complaint form, you know you're living in fascism. So the formal complaint form ticket number that I have with the FCC, which everyone should use if they want to complain about the fact that they think that Facebook and anybody on the internet that's affecting crimes against the United States should be held under FCC regulatory authority, which would put them under commerce laws, treasury laws, folks. They don't want people who are affecting crimes against the United States for denying his First Amendment rights or affecting fraud against the Constitution. They don't want them under the Treasury. They don't mind making money under the Fed note. They don't mind making money under the UCC, but none of these corporations, including the United States government, including the Article 3 court stealing our babies, they don't want to be held to the Treasury laws concerning negotiable instruments in commerce and fraud. They don't want that. So here I'm going to tell you, here's my ticket number. Everybody write it down. 2655163. That apparently is the ticket number that the FCC phone agent gave me for the FCC Enforcement Bureau in order to ask them if I could have a formal complaint form. You getting the gist of what we're talking about here? Those types of intervention are considered unlawful under the law, considered obstructions to justice under the law, and if implemented through an agency of the United States government, be they separated, but even if they're paid by the United States government to do something, to administrate a program, if they're obstructing justice by making it so I have to actually request to have a form or a formal complaint through the administrative process of the United States, that's called criminal conspiracy against substantial rights, which is a violation of Title 18, 241, 242. And if they're affecting criminality under Title 18, they don't have the authority to access our treasury, folks. It's all about, what's that movie? Show me the money! The FCC, everyone who works for it gets paid by us.
So
but I had to ask,
what do we do to make ourselves heard, to establish ourselves as a movement for we the people?
Well, you know, I've delivered the treasury to Trump. I think they're starting to use it. I've delivered the treasury to Trump with Clay's case. I want my son back. I'm going to tell you, fire and brimstone and all hell will come upon everybody in this country if my son, Clayton Michael Bates, is not found alive and well and delivered to our door. Probably for the next 30 days. Because if they're going to traffic my son, they'll traffic anybody's son. And if they've trafficked my son and can't find him, and he's not found alive and can't be proven alive, which we already know, right, Amelia, that they can't prove my son's alive? If they can't prove my son's alive, how many children have they murdered? See, that's the point here. My son is not just the test case. He's the case. So if in Clay's case, he ends up being like that poor immigrant woman who needs a really good attorney. She needs a lawyer, not an attorney. And that's why I really get mad when people call them lawyers. Attorneys don't know the law. It's established they don't know the law in the statutes. It says they're not even supposed to be learning the law. The only person required to be learning the law under Title 28, which is the Title 28, the statutes governing Article 3 courts currently. The only people required to be learning the law is Solicitor General. There's not even the judges. There's no attorney in the United States operating in any of the courts of the United States that are required to be learned in the law. That is a specific term with a definition in the law, pursuant to the statutes that govern their activities, which they don't even follow, except for the acting Solicitor General, because pursuant to the Tony, he can't even occupy the seat because it's a de jure seat. So that's why his title is acting Solicitor. And if he's not going under the title acting Solicitor General, he should be arrested immediately, because an attorney cannot occupy the Solicitor General's seat, because it is the person who counsels the POTUS and the executive, the judiciary, as to what law is the high law. An attorney can't occupy that seat because they don't know it. It's not their forte. That's my forte. That's a lot of people's forte that aren't judges and aren't, quote, attorneys and aren't House of Representative members or senators or whatever. Mm-hmm. We don't choose to be of that category because we serve the greater body of the people. So they're not required to know the law.
Here's my beef. We, the people, are no longer being represented by Congress. They're no longer representing we, the American people.
They're starting to, but it's slow, and it's too slow. We have criminals. Okay, I just watched a video. Okay, ponder this. I watched a video of the illustrious ex-POTUS Obama say to a group of people in Kenya. He was the first president from Kenya. He was the first United States president from Kenya. That in itself is a criminal admission. I don't even know if people understand this. But hold on. If the United States corporation isn't actually what we're told it is, where someone has to be born in the United States, our perception, and be of the age of 36, well, if it's that, then he couldn't be there, and everything should be void. And wait, why is it not? See, that's what people are understanding, that we have a fiction, what we're being told, and the reason why the American people are being lied to is because we're paying for everything. We're paying for Europe. We have paid okay, you remember in the tax called how you can get an earned income credit? And everyone was complaining about the earned income credit because you didn't even have to earn income to get the credit. You could literally have had no income. And if you file taxes and you apply for the earned income credit, the tax department would pay you $9,000, whatever classified, based upon your dependency. So it's basically a way of filing for a government IRS subsidy, though you never worked. Okay, that's what trade barriers are functioning as for the rest of the world. The United States and your illustrious Republicans and Democratic representatives have made it so the rest of the world is being paid by the American people through trade deficits, and we are actually funding the preponderance of their governmental functions. Okay, so through trade inequity in trade fiefdom, trade fees, trade contracts, the United States is paying for, let's say, 30% of a country's governmental budget. Do you understand? Mm-hmm. We are actually the social security system through our treasury and our commerce and our world, and our fiat note to the whole world. There are governments that the preponderance of, I believe this this to be true. I think I've read this, that the preponderance of their actually operating budget, capital for their government, is based upon how much money they make from how much we have to pay them as a fee to trade with them, where their people buy stuff from us. We're funding governments through trade. And Trump's figured this out. That's why they're so mad. That's the world. Okay, that's the new world order, where the United States of American people pay all these fascist organizations and countries where totalitarian puppet governments of dictatorial nature set up by the elite, CIA in this country. What are they called in Russia? They're called M13s in Britain. They all have these secret codes. They're counter-international criminal organizations that their own people pay for them to coordinate with other nations to undermine the solvency of the American people. Okay. The whole of the world.
But Lotus, we have American citizens on American soil willingly compromising our country's liberty and freedoms for gift cards.
Dude, speaking of gift cards.
For gift cards, Lotus. People are committing treason in our country for gift cards.
Okay, well, here's what I'm going to tell you about that. When you put people on the edge of existence, they sacrifice things that they shouldn't because their minds are polluted. And when their minds are polluted, their flesh is totally gone.
They're literally protesting American way of life, American government, because they're protesting on the streets to make America like the rest of the third world countries or countries that have already been conquered by the New World Order. The New World Order that wants to base our economy on the flesh, on human trafficking.
Get that. Wait, on American flesh. Just American flesh. Folks, they're bringing the children in over the borders because they don't have enough American flesh babies to pay the debts.
At some point, do you think we're going to analyze? We're gonna look into what these people are running from, what conditions they're running from in their country. Are we going to document this? Are there any voices?
I just talked to my guy today. We're working on, what I need is this. Like I actually helped a couple Occupy organizations in their founding. I need some old school Anon, and I need to contact me because I need logistics for a live uplink for true militias. Because that's another word that's been stolen, militias. I'm gonna tell you right now. I'm gonna say right now, and no one's gonna say nothing back to me because they're a bunch of cowards, that there's not one functional militia group that actually is not co-opted by the deep state. I'm going to tell you right now, if you're in a militia and you think you're just a social club, you're a bunch of men with guns trying to act all fancy amongst yourselves, but you're doing nothing militia-ish. Just call yourselves the local gun club. Because no militia is work. So I'm gonna call y'all right now. Like I said, where's all the good men?
Hard on this show, you guys. No.
Hey, you know what? On my YouTube channel, my PO box. You go to Lotus. You go to Madly Arts. You just put the word Lotus in YouTube, and all my stuff comes up. You go to my main page and you look on that main little document. It has my phone number. It has my email address. It has my Skype and my P.O. box. Anybody who wants to do anything of consequence can contact me at any time. I have people contact me all the time. But I'm telling you, hey, real militiaman, you want to be a real militiaman? Give me a holla. I got some stuff for you to do. But I bet no one. Well, first off, they had to listen to you. So that tells you right there. if there are militia people listening to you, Amelia, in my mind, they're not real militiamen, because they should be concerned about child trafficking across the border and child trafficking within our government and the undermining of our nation and a coup and all that stuff. They should be concerned, at least when we talk.
Oh, they're concerned. They're concerned. They're listening in. I actually got from the Omega and Delta Force. They're listening in. They told me that they work on the borders. They told me they work on the borders with traffickers, and that if I continue to just talk about this topic.
Oh yeah, folks, we're being threatened by quote militia people because the militia's got it all damn packed. They think it's up to them to define who gets to talk to these criminals. So basically, the word militia now is associated along the southern border with people who talk to foreign agents bringing babies across the border. So we're going to retake the word militia back from those criminals, because that's not militia, but folks, that's called a criminal organization on the other side of the border. Maybe we should name them M14s or something.
Yeah.
What should we?
That's what it sounds like to me.
It sounds like, oh wait, well maybe we should name them the first militia. We'll call the militias that work with baby traffickers M1s. We're going to give your criminal organization of people who've stolen the word militia, we're going to call you M1s. M1s. So you M1s who think that I give a crap, or Amelia gives a crap about your little gun running and baby running across the border, and you think you're going to threaten us into being quiet, guess what? I'm going to take that word militia back from you. Because American militia would shoot your ass. The American militia would shoot you on sight. Because they would be under international military code of justice authority to shoot you for your criminal conspiracy with a foreign agent to traffic babies. You're sick people. Sick. You are sick, sick men that don't deserve the word militia. Is that clear enough, Amelia?
Yep.
Sick men. Where are the real men? Hey, I just told you. Holla, holla. I got some places I need you to check out. I got some tunnels. I got some places. I need a couple old and ons. I need some live feeds in the middle of the desert off a jump of a satellite like we used to do in Occupy, where they can't keep us from our live feed. That's what I need.
We need our listeners to please support our content, because it costs money to provide the people with this information and content. And look, Lotus is the best of the best.
I'm not playing no more. I've delivered the Treasury to the executive branch, to the OIG, and to the military. They don't want to do their business. That's fine. I'm going to go about doing my business. That's my job as an American. My job as an American to educate and operate as a free press, because as far as I'm concerned, Amelia, you and I are free press. I'm designating myself press. I'm not a whistleblower. I'm a press. See, whistleblower implies that I have some statutory right. I'm just an American citizen screaming, you're a traitor, and you're seditious, and you're a criminal. That's free press. See, that's called First Amendment. See, people don't understand that as a citizen of the Republic, you have the free press right to point.
People don't understand how dangerous it is to be a child advocate and activist in America.
Oh my gosh. They have no idea. I mean, well, okay, first off, I'm going to tell you right now. The more I learn about Malcolm X, the more I understand that Malcolm X was a whistleblower. He was one of the first whistleblowers we've ever known. Okay? He was a whistleblower, and he paid for it because he was exposing it.
I really like these people online that comment, and they're like, oh, well, you're just posting memes online.
Content. But you quote content. I love how you're like, you're just posting memes. You talk like I do. I'm like, give them a stupid voice, because they have a stupid voice. It's stupid for men to...
I'm sorry. I just, after all these years, Lotus, all these years, and we're still, this is, to say this is moving slower than a snail on a turtle's back is an understatement.
Well, you know what's funny though is that it's actually moved a lot more quickly since, at least from my perspective, since my mind has figured out what the fuck they're doing. Pardon me, I just said that word. But it really is like, oh,
yeah, we gotta try not to use this.
I know, but
because we want this podcast to travel far and wide.
But so
please share.
when you get to that, but it really is like, oh my gosh, the word "godsmacked" comes into mind, and you're like, oh my gosh.
Well, that's the
we're
thing,
being controlled by
people contemplate, are they actually human beings? Are we dealing with the human race? Because these crimes against humanity are so monstrous.
Well, all I can tell you is that if they are human, we would classify them as sociopathic and psychopathic. They would have serious, multiple mental illnesses under the DMSR, whatever,
So Judge Jeanine Pirro would be accurate.
She is. Oh, absolutely. I mean, what's so funny is we talked on Saturday, and then if you listen to her opening statements on her show on Saturday night, she's actually saying exactly what I said. That there was a lack of. If we don't have comedy and amity, we have avarice, and we have fascism.
The thing is that Whoopi didn't just do that to anyone.
Well, everything is divine in its nature. Have I not said that? Whoopi did two things. And this is, I actually think Whoopi should seek counseling. I love Whoopi. And I want to talk about her earlier because Whoopi is actually a product of the social systems. If you watch her old comedy, she was not, and I don't know that Judge Jeanine is brought up from wealth either. I think Judge Jeanine didn't have it easy. We talked about that. But I don't know her history. She has not relied upon her history as a form of art. So if you watch old Whoopi Goldberg, when she first came on the scene, she was a child of a single mother, I believe, on welfare. Okay, so for Whoopi, it's more than personal if she finds out that the welfare system is a contrived instrument of fascism to divide and to dissolve the family unit and create dissent among the populace that can be triggered by key words. Like she is the product of programming. And that's, to me, from me, and I'm not trying to insult her because I think she's an intelligent person, but she definitely lost her logic and reason on that day. And she needs to contemplate just from looking at the profit from the own people of her color.
Yeah, but you lose your cool, you lose the privilege to a debate. Period.
She lost her
power. She gave away her power on The View, live on TV, as a person of color.
Yes, she did. And in both respects of her, she actually exposed her ideology as completely flawed and not founded on anything but anger, and having lost your reason and logic and perspective on what is important here. And let me explain something. When I write an argument in pleading, I always put the same two last paragraphs. One is, the very last one is that I bring it forth in peace, amity, and comedy as treaties. Particular treaties require me to. But the one before that says that I operate to preserve and perpetuate the republic and to preserve the safety of the people, which is by Roman maxim, the ultimate. Okay. If there are people, and Judge Jeanine spoke of this, if there are people in our government that get paid by the American people that are preaching violence and instability, they need to be immediately removed under the civil law, the statutes. Because the Roman maxim of all law is that the safety of the people is supreme. Okay, so Roman civil law, which is what the administrative courts operate under, and the common law courts confirm. We actually abide by those. There are many laws that we agree with. There's a couple that we don't, but there's some parallels. But the safety of the people is supreme is one we both agree on. So if there are people promoting or acting in a manner that creates a circumstance or situation where the safety of the people could come into a discourse, that is not considered proper civil decorum. If it promotes violence, it's considered criminal. That is the law. Okay? That's not okay. We can't have Republican or Democratic because it's all about corporate charters, folks. There's no difference between the Republican Party and the Democratic Party. They just have different corporate franchise numbers. That's really it. Okay?
Well,
so I mean, no one in any party is supposed to be promoting violence upon that would affect violence in a civil society and even go to the violence upon people, such as Maxine Waters did. That is a crime.
They're committing treason on it, and they're not representing the American people. These members of Congress are committing treason.
And so
they're affecting basically terrorism on the people by promoting violence and trying to incite race wars and different types of division amongst the people, and by not carrying themselves in a manner that is formable and bringing the levity of their argument, the substantiation of their argument to the table, they're no longer effective.
With facts, not just, okay, you can bring your emotion, define them as emotion. You can bring your passion. See, that's the beauty of the common law. We can sit and have discord and discourse. We cannot agree, and yet the rules of our republic allow us to sit and argue as long as we don't do three things. Just three things. We can sit and argue all we want about the semantics, the facts, all that stuff. We just can't do three things. We can't hurt anybody. We can't disturb the public peace, and we can't disturb the public trust. Okay, Maxine Waters suggested that we do all three of those, that we hurt people, that we disturb the public peace, and we disturb the public trust, because she's sitting in a seat of trust that's not supposed to promote people harming other people in our society. She violated the high law, folks. So you can sit and argue and do all you want. And really, I would have loved it. This is what I would love to see happen with Whoopi Goldberg and Judge Jeanine Pirro. They're supposed to be friends, right? I would love for those two women to have a show. Just have a 3-hour special TV. I don't care. I don't care if they go for coffee. I don't care if they would let me host a dinner and have them both in my house where I can arbitrate a conversation between two women that I know, believe, and agree with 90% of what they come to the table with. But the power elite is not allowing those women, by the oppressions of their position, the political oppressions, the dogma, the demagoguery.
I'm not right or left. Again, I don't like boxes, but I am actively campaigning to legalize medicinal marijuana in all 50 states, because if we can. But wait a second. I want to make a point here. If we can devise a system for heroin addicts, and we can have methadone clinics, why can't we figure out how to legalize medical marijuana for children that suffer from seizure disorders, people that have Parkinson's disease, PTSD, veterans that have PTSD? People, we need to get it together.
Well, yeah, but again, even with marijuana, weed, even with hemp, people have to understand it has nothing to do with the drug or the medicinal. First off, they would rather substitute.
Do you hear what I'm saying? We can devise a system to make sure we distribute basically heroin or synthetic heroin to the people, but we can't figure out how to organize to get medicinal marijuana clinics for the children that suffer from seizure disorders, people that suffer Parkinson's disease. It's been proven to help these people and children that need it, that have seizure disorders.
It's not about that.
We can't figure it out. Well, that's not their problem, right? That's not their problem, but we can't figure it out.
Yeah, but the whole system is about others, the hidden agenda, making money. That's the whole point. When you have methadone is a man-made, formulated synthesis of heroin that's not supposed to be as addictive, really. Do you know anyone who's actually not on methadone? They just substitute a man-made drug that they can make money off of selling through insurance versus just letting them live on heroin. Okay, I'm sorry. So the point is that we wean them into the man-made machine. So basically, when you're a consumer of methadone, you're a permanent slave to the state.
But we have the capability to fix these things. We have it, obviously, because we have methadone clinics. So obviously, we have...
I understand. Look, it's the whole system you're comparing methadone. The whole point of the whole methadone opioid is to create layers of economy for all of the corporate franchises that bar union members have created that eat off the substance of the people in their malfeasance. You're not getting the point. That's the satanic...
I'm getting the point. I'm just making an argument for the sake of making an argument here.
But right, and I'm showing you it's not about it's okay, from your perspective it's easily fixed. If we can do this, why not that? And here's why. Because the reason why you think that system was cultivated to help the people isn't why it was cultivated. It was cultivated for people who make money. That you want to create the heroin addict so that you can make money off of them. You want to create impoverished so you can make the money off of them. You want to create women, single mothers, who then men target, by the way. The memes, if you're on my Facebook page and you post a meme to me or you send me anything related to bagging on women versus men taking responsibility, if you're a man sending anti-woman stuff to me, don't, because I'll just shame you, okay, first and foremost. So don't do that anymore, because I'll shame you. So, it's the whole point of create iniquity and then eat off of it. That's exactly what Aristotle said statutes were for 2,000 years ago.
We get these memes, where women should be able to raise the children, work outside the home and raise the children, that we're not women if we don't provide and raise the children both simultaneously and have a successful, accomplished career. However, nowhere does it say, nowhere does anybody say, why don't the men parent anymore? Why aren't they required to work outside the home and raise the children? And the thing is this isn't a male female thing. This is the war on the destabilization of the family unit, the American family. This is, again, we go back to the divide and conquer.
Right. And men have walked themselves right into that trap. Men themselves have. I mean, well, I love to revert to Gnosticism and quote the Gospel of Thomas when Jesus said, since you don't respect, basically paraphrase his words, because his disciples were like, Mary needs to leave the room because she shouldn't be included in this because women count for nothing. That's basically.
One of our listeners made a comment. Medical marijuana solves too many problems, in my opinion, and we just can't have that.
Since 1812, this is what I'm going to tell that listener. Since 1812, America, not the United States, America, different instruments here, the United States of America. America has been obstructed from its divine manifest destiny since 1812. They have shackled us with fiefdom and vassaldom and proven themselves to be fraudulent in their trusteeship, and they have kept us in the status quo of obstructionists. They've obstructed everything about this country. They have tried to keep America down since 1812, folks.
We're
1812.
also keeping each other down. We're keeping each other down. We have Native Americans that feel justified with America being destabilized because the land was taken for them. We are not going to progress as a human race. We're not going to aspire to greater things unless we address the ills of society today. Now, I understand in the past that was history. This is now.
Well, the history is important in the law, okay, but it's not important in the political spectrum necessarily. In that, no one alive today, Indian or otherwise, or Indo-European or wherever, or Irish, Black Irish, wherever you come from to this country, because this country,
America is a melting pot. Period.
America's a melting pot because we've told people come here and have discourse.
Yeah, come here legally and legally. It costs a lot of money. It costs a lot of money to come here legally. It takes a lot of time. The naturalization process takes a lot of time and commitment.
How about this? If the preponderance of people in a nation...
What about the people that did come here legally, that did go through the naturalization process?
I agree with that. But if the preponderance of people in Mexico want to live in the United States, why don't you just become a state? There's a process. That's what I'm saying here. You can become a state of the United States. Why keep coming across the border? Mm-hmm. If you want to live in the United States, be part of the United States. It would be wonderful if Mexico would become part of the United States. I would applaud that. It would rejoin the Mexican territory that we purchased from the landed people through trusteeship and trusts. Mm-hmm. I would love for all the land that we purchased collectively to be reunited. That would include the Republic. That goes the Oregon territory. That's California, Oregon. That's a lot of territories. We purchased all that from the prevailing government at the time, but the people were divided. They didn't ask for that. I would love for Mexico to become a state.
But do you see where this is being used? The divide tactics and the race card and all of this. We're missing the bigger picture. The bigger picture is here. They're politicizing, disarming the American people, removing our borders, having an invasion. That would be because we already have invasion at our borders. We have thousands of people coming here illegally at our borders.
But here's why.
The people are so wrapped up in politics, they can't see the destabilization of America, attack on America by members of Congress that no longer represent the American people.
Right, and that's the point. The law says that all those people are owed equity. Okay, so that's the central issue here. And so what the people who are occupying the instruments, or for example, telling the woman on the phone call from the FCC what they can and cannot take. She refused to take a complaint under the FCC guidelines against Facebook. That's a criminal act in my mind.
What we're discussing, we have some new listeners that are listening in. What we're discussing is basically, what if your phone company sent you a letter saying that your business phone line was going to be suspended for 60 days because of something you said in a conversation last week that was offensive to somebody that was listening into your phone call.
Listening, right. Right. The internet is not regulated by the FCC except by the providers. So no one doing... Okay, so if I call you on the phone and I represent myself in fraud to you, in commerce, the FCC comes and gets my butt. But if I'm Facebook and I defraud you and violate the federal law and censor you, I'm just scot-free according to the FCC. And that's the point here. You're talking about intentional. Okay, I'm going to tell you that this woman should have taken a complaint But she has been poignantly told to not take complaints about Facebook through the FCC. She admitted that people have calling the FCC, thinking the FCC should regulate this.
Let me make another point here.
And you know how that happens?
The Facebook headquarters is located in California, which is a jurisdiction of the FCC.
So, and the point is that you know why that was told? Because Facebook's attorneys called the FCC attorneys and said, make sure that none of your people take any complaints. Not only have they made it so I can't phone call in a complaint, I have to issue a complaint with the FCC to get a form to file a formal complaint. And they may or may not call me back, folks, because the woman on the phone couldn't even give me the location. It's called obstructions to justice. Criminal conspiracy in violation of substantial rights. Your government is operating criminally on a regular basis because attorneys are sending memos and telling other attorneys to make sure the people, that they counsel the people working for the FCC and the CPS and the HHS. I could name all the ABC things. What reminds me of that is there's a song from Hair that starts off, LBJ took the IRT down to Wall Street, USA. And he got there,
I'll have to play it on my 70s music, my TGIF Friday night music show.
Absolutely. IRGUS. It's all in acronyms, folks. It's all in acronyms. They're called the ABC agencies. Your ABC agencies are being counseled by criminal attorneys to not follow statutes. That's the deep state. That's the FBI. That's the DOJ. Because the Department of Justice would be the people who had told the FCC attorneys to tell the people on the FCC phone calls to take no complaints about anybody doing commerce and fraud upon the internet through the FCC. You're being directed to the FTC. I was like, wait a minute. The Facebook makes money on the internet, and they're affecting fraud. Why is the FCC not regulating? Now, here's the deal. I bet you $1,000,000 in about 3 days we see something on the internet about the FCC re-looking at Facebook. How much you want to bet? How much you want to bet that happens? Because that's what seems to happen when you and I have a conversation. Mm-hmm. You need to pay attention. But there's more people listening because I know that there's at least 6 agencies of state listening to my phone calls. And I consider what I say to be public notice because I've been told I'm monitored. So if I'm told I'm being monitored, that means that the federal government knows exactly what I'm saying, and everything I'm saying is notice to all agents and all principals. Everything I say is notice to all agents and all principals of all the law of the realm. That's what happens when you're the press as a republic citizen and you write letters to people. People have no idea the power of a letter. Now, why would the FCC guard a piece of paper that's called an official, not an informal complaint? See, in prison, they give you things, and at the top it says informal complaint. I'm like, well, I want to make a formal one.
It's like those forms that they have down at the police station that you have to go down and pick up, and there's always a police officer standing right there waiting for you when you go down to pick up that official form.
And it's a file 13 because somewhere in it said, I will ignore you because the words unofficial. Okay, folks, go call the 800 number for the FCC on the internet. It's an 800 number. You can get there by complaints against. Go call the 800 number. Hold on, I'll give it to y'all because then you all can hear this. If I can do it says to file an informal complaint. Okay, if it's not formal, it don't mean nothing. And informal is like An informal complaint is just called
official.
It's called bitching where I come from. Right? Okay. So if you want to bitch, that's fine. Okay.
I have to laugh, Lotus. Otherwise, I'm gonna cry because all of this, it just burns me up. I want to spit. I'm so mad all the time. This is
verily, right? Verily. Listen to the words coming out of my mouth, as Chris Tucker said in The Fifth Element. Do you hear the words coming out of my mouth? Listen to the words. If you would like to file an informal complaint with the FCC, press 5. I was like, what? So the first question out of my mouth when I got to an actual person was, I noticed that your cue call says this would be an informal complaint. How do I file a formal complaint? And then I find out I have to ask somebody else that I can't talk to directly, and I'm given a number to even get the form for a formal complaint. So the form for a formal complaint is regulated through the FCC. That sounds like criminal conspiracy to prevent people from complaining about fraud upon the public internet and the public utilities, which should include the internet, since apparently, according to Gore, we created it. Right? Mm-hmm. So the United States creates the internet, and the FCC doesn't regulate it. I wonder how that happened. Oh, maybe it was a coup of your Congress, and they made it so people could affect commerce, including baby trafficking on the internet, and it couldn't be deemed fraudulent because the FCC, which regulates international commerce on public utilities, doesn't even have any, according to the phone lady, jurisdictional authority to regulate commerce on the internet. So they can traffic babies outside of the wall.
These are the same people that are on Facebook with Cambridge Analytica that had the data leak that proved that these people are targeting us online. They're profiling and targeting us online to traffic some of the most vulnerable people in our society.
Here's the number, folks. If you really want to see if I'm full of hooey, call 888-225-5322, which I believe that's the number I called. I got it off my phone, searching Consumer Complaint Center for phone, and listen to the cues for FCC, and go through the cues and hear it say informal complaint. Talk to a person after the however many numbers you got to push numbers, which is like 6. Seriously, it's like 6 to file a formal complaint. And ask them how to file a formal complaint with the FCC, and just watch your mouth drop. Okay, and then ask them if the internet's regulated by the FCC, and they'll say absolutely not. So all fraud, anything on the internet that's fraudulent, the United States says no, we're not going to regulate that. That's a public utility of the United States of America. We founded it. We created it. Why is it not regulated under the federal FCC? That right there tells you you're in coup, folks. That right there. Okay? I mean, it's clear as day when you actually start looking into your quote government.
No, okay, it's not. We can see on the View. We can see on the View the double standard. Look at Whoopi Goldberg on the View. Still on the View. This TV show is still on. It's not canceled. And then look at Roseanne Barr.
Right. Well, exactly. Because, again, what I put in my mem, okay, so if ABC doesn't do anything to Whoopi Goldberg, somebody should bring a complaint against ABC to have their license pulled because they're actually promoting a liberal agenda, which creates discourse among the people and threatens our safety and security. But Roseanne Barr, who does something on her... Okay, she did something on the air, folks. Okay, she did something on the air that was clearly of a political leaning that was repugnant to civil discourse. She didn't call her names, but she didn't need to, right? But Roseanne Barr, in her private time, I mean, this is incredulous. But I mean, you have to understand this. The FCC regulates interstate and international communications. So what they're saying is if you communicate for the purposes of affecting fraud on the internet, we don't care. Okay, think about it, folks.
But if you post a picture of a unicorn,
what's the word?
A unicorn cake with the word faggot on it, you're going to be banned for 60 days for a hate crime.
And then though that act is a violation of the law.
Just imagine, some people affect business on Facebook.
Well, you know what? If you can affect fraud all you want on the internet, according to the FCC, go for it, folks. Seriously, go for it.
We're apparently not adult enough to decide for ourselves where we focus our attention, and we need Facebook to give us teenagers a timeout. Even if we're affecting business on Facebook.
Okay. When the day comes when someone that I don't see their face, I don't even know if they're real, is offended by the simple type, and I can be banned from communicating with my other 909.
It's just crazy. It's just crazy.
That's not
Every day.
In violation of my First Amendment rights, which would be an act of fraud under international law. International law, folks. Okay, I don't think people understand. If I go to another country and I speak out, guess what? They don't have jurisdiction over me, for one. And if I speak out as an American, and this doesn't happen, then maybe I'll do this, and they try to put me in their prison for my First Amendment exercise, I personally would know how to defend myself against their jurisdiction and say, I have that right anywhere in the world because I'm an American. Americans understand we can walk anywhere in the world and speak the truth of fact, no matter where you are. And if you know the law, they can't touch you. We are like the people on, okay, do you remember in Invasion of the Body Snatchers?
We're so politically correct, Lotus.
I know. Well, that is politically correct. It's politically correct as an American to
I think this is why people from other countries detest us.
It's not politically correct as Americans to preach violence. That's not American. Americans do not believe in violence. We believe in discourse and discernment and communication and understanding.
Well, Lotus, I don't know. But we're going to somehow form. Yeah, somebody has to speak up. Somebody's got to speak to this craziness.
This stuff, I think that we should just speak like a couple times a week about basic
Oh, man.
Just like a dose of realism,
Yeah.
Like, this sounds stupid, and I go, well, here's why it's stupid.
Well, half the battle is just getting people to realize, what is being imposed.
The interesting thing about it, and I have this saying, it's called you'll know the truth by the saying of it. And the truth really is like that. Like, when someone speaks truth, you're like, yeah, that's fucking, sorry, pardon me, that's real. And
It rings true.
Off your heart. But you literally go,
I want to refrain from the expletives, okay?
I'm sorry, but that's not even. I've told you what that means. Never mind. Good minute. So it's an acronym, folks. That's another word they've adorned. It's an ABC. That word FUCK is an acronym like DOJ. You just don't know what it means. In any case, so it rings true in the heart, and you're like, yeah, man, I see it, I feel it, because you just in the saying of it. You're like, you spoke truth to me, man. If you do the hippie fight. But it's the truth in the saying of it. And once you start to see the truth,
yeah,
it exposes itself. Like, I always listen to what isn't being said. When I heard John Kerry say that Donald Trump doesn't know how to handle isn't qualified to handle the business of America, I laughed. I literally, like, in my own head.
He's only built his global empire on, mergers and acquisitions. I mean, I don't know what could possibly qualify him. Unless he's not adequate at running kids for cash through our ABC government agencies that are unregulated.
The man is interfering with our main profit margin.
Apple cart.
Apple cart of baby trafficking. Our baby
trafficking, Lotus. He's politically incorrect.
Yeah, he's not towing the pedo line.
I love it.
He's not towing the pedo line. Remember John Kerry? Okay, y'all can think what you want about John Kerry and aliens, right? John Kerry was noticed by, at least John Kerry personally, in his office of Secretary of State, was served the writ of conspiracy by me of the passage of the TONA in 2012. Whether he got it personally, I can't speak to that, but I'm going to tell you, that boy, after he wasn't Secretary of State, took a special trip to the South Pole and got rejected from it. Okay, that's a fact, folks. So John Kerry, an ex-Secretary of State, went to the South Pole, and the people, whoever controlled the South Pole, told him to get out and don't come back. That's like a fact. Okay, that's weird. Why would an ex-Secretary of State go to the South Pole, and who told him to leave? Right? Okay, like, yeah, you have to contemplate this stuff. Some of this stuff is actually provable in what's reported to the, quote, fake media. And sometimes what I found out is, remember the National Enquirer, when it used to cover Michael Jackson, right? It used to cover Michael Jackson, say, Michael Jackson sleeps in a barometric chamber. His best friend is a monkey. Do you remember all this stuff? Like when I was little. Well, what I'm finding out is that some of the stuff that they put in things like the National Enquirer, those are actually disclosures. They use, okay.
Well, they have to put the crimes out there. They have to tell us what they're doing. Okay?
Well,
This is the thing. They're telling us, but it's so hard for a normal human being to wrap their head around it. We can't even conceive that these are human beings committing these crimes against humanity. It's so foul, so vile, so vapid.
I don't think that's human brains.
Yeah.
From a biological standpoint, I think that their brains are so deformed by their activities, and that's a proven fact. This is something people don't understand. The brain conformation the way your brain is structured can be dramatically altered in a short period of time within your lifetime by certain activities. One being, for example, smoking crack. Smoking crack in a protracted period. There's studies on that. You can look it up. Look it up. I've talked to psychiatrists, which means that they are able to prescribe medications. They have a little better background. They're medical doctors with psychology degrees, right? So psychiatrists have said and done studies and said that when you smoke crack, it changes the shape of the ventricles of your brain. Okay, now that doesn't seem important, like no big deal. I'm going to tell you what the ventricles do. The ventricles are little sacs in the middle of your brain that drain off all the, what we call bile, like the waste of the brain activity. They all collect in the ventricles, it goes through your lymphatic system, go through your kidneys, you pee it out, right? Well, the problem with changing the ventricles of the brain is when you smoke crack for a long period of time, it actually changes the ventricles of the brain to match that of people with schizophrenia. So when you smoke crack for a long period of time, within your own lifetime, in a matter of months, depending on how you do it, you can actually change the way your brain is shaped so you have the same brain as a paranoid schizophrenic. Okay? So you can change the brain, folks. You can change the brain from a normal morphology.
It can be detected by an X-ray, right? It can be scanned.
All right, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. So you can change the morphology of your brain within your lifetime from a normal brain to a paranoid schizophrenic by abusing drugs. So if you don't think that you can't change the morphology of the brain of a child by separating them from their family and sexually abusing them, torturing them, bleeding them out, whatever these psychopaths do
in Child Protective Services,
you're completely uneducated in facts of not only the law, but biology. So these are things that people don't conceive. Y'all look at your world and think it's all fixed. There's nothing fixed in your world. There's nothing in your world that is not a fiction except for what comes out of your mouth. As the Bible says, you can't help what comes in your mouth. You can't control it because you breathe the air. Did you notice? Oh, did you see there's radioactive isotopes in wine in California? You imagine there might be radioactive isotopes in the blood of Californians? Come on, folks. If the grapes from the vines are showing radioactive isotopes in the wine, you don't think the people of California aren't being radioactively inundated and they're not going to die? Come on, folks. This is think, poo. Think. This is poo, man. This is Winnie the Pooh stuff. Move past the fluoride. Get off the fluoride. Stop the mood-altering drugs. Stop getting drunk every night. Stop doing heroin on the week. Whatever you're doing, stop polluting your mind and think. Because we need you. The people who are... Here's the sad part, Amelia. The people who feel that the world is screwed up the most are the ones that are falling through the cracks from drug addiction. They're the ones that know. Mm-hmm. They know. They've seen it their whole lives. They've been aware since they were born. They've been dropped into the Moloch, and they said, I revolt. I would rather die slow, but I'll die. I mean, I
did a really important interview with Katrina Hagen, who is doing an excellent job at revealing these data links and the targeting of single mothers and single family homes by some of these data mining networks like Cambridge Analytica. Amazing work that she's doing with these tracer routes. And it's only got like 30 views. It's immunity trafficking and electronic warfare on YouTube with guest Katrina Hagen. And I just want to say people need to check out her work. And I want to encourage you, Lotus, to work with her as well.
Well, the interesting thing about Cambridge Analytica is I remember back before Trump won, or right after Trump won, there was Cambridge Analytica actually basically stole intellectually the data, the computer program that they used. They stole that from an American doctoral student, and there was actually an article about the guy and he actually ran it as a subroutine, an app off Facebook. So Cambridge Analytica, okay, and I'm going to tell you, I exposed this before Trump, right after Trump won. They were talking about how he won. Cambridge Analytica stole, intellectually confiscated a young man who was doing some type of thesis, either master's or doctoral, in a American university program, which means that he doesn't get to claim his intellectual property. When you're a doctoral master student, if you produce something, the university can actually sell it as their intellectual property. I don't think people understand that about when you actually engage in master's and doctoral thesis programs. If you actually create a patent program, the university owns the patent. And so probably what happened is the university that this guy worked for sold the patent to Cambridge Analytica, a British, it's called industrialism. Think of Tesla and Edison when it comes to this type of stolen tech. Mm-hmm. So this young man was a doctoral student, and he created a Facebook app where it was a random app that what would happen is, and it was based on it was a Facebook side app. So this guy ran a Facebook side app for his doctoral program where he asked random questions about people who willfully through Facebook downloaded this subroutine through Facebook. And he found, because of the way he was not doing pie charts. He had changed basically it wasn't chi-squared statistics anymore. He changed the formulation to a limit, and he took these programs, and it showed patterns that would not, the computer was kicking out patterns of people's behavior that made no sense. But when applied, they were true. Okay, so it was something like, and what had happened was Donald Trump, when he was running for president, the Cambridge Analytica program, which stole it from this guy in America off of a Facebook app. And this, I'm telling you the history here, folks. This will come out in truth if this ever actually is exposed, and why they're going, Trump's into Russia. Okay, so the Brexit program was passed because the people who were using the political arena of the Brexit used the Cambridge Analytica app to target people. So what they did is the app allowed you to target people politically based on these bizarre questions like, what color of car do you like the best? I mean, it was weird stuff. But it was the base point of this guy's program could point that these weird, so basically it allowed, using the Cambridge Analytical program is how the Brexit got passed politically. Well, right at the same time, since Trump says, hey, that sounds like a great, and in politics, what you do is you pay people for political programming. You say, hey, I have what Trump did is he went to the Republican Party and bought the database of Republican voters. He paid for that. I promise you. That's how it's run. You pay for the data roll. So the Republican Party is just a mega corporation that controls the registered people who stay there.
And George Soros owns a lot of the voting machines.
Right. So Trump went and bought the Republican voter rolls from the Republican Party. I promise you had to pay for it. For each state, he had to pay to buy the voter rolls for Republicans. And then he went and paid this organization who was using the same type of analytical, mathematical formula created by an American doctoral student, ripped off through the system of patents, right, intellectual property, and he used this program, which was not based on the standard bell curve statistical analytical method, but on a higher math paradigm, and he applied certain questions. And you can even, Trump administration, the Trump people even said, this is what we use. They were able to run their campaign more efficiently with less money because this program that this American designed, that the British analytical group totally stole intellectual as far as I'm concerned. In fact, I think he was even like, well, I can't do anything about it. I'm a student, right? He knows they stole their program off Facebook. So Facebook probably even sold the program to Analytica as a sidebar. And they used this group, and they were able to target, and like it was weird stuff. When I read the article, it was an odd article in a weird place, but he says that the Trump administration was able to determine that people who like red cars are more likely to be Republican. So what they would do is they literally went in and they bought your DMV rolls. They went and bought the car registration rolls for a region and looked up all the red car owners, and they sent them targeted information. And guess what? Most of them were Republican. See, it's all about what happened is this guy in America, in an American university setting, had figured out a mathematical program that threw out a human flippancy as an AI program, and the Trump administration, the people running, doing his campaign had the money because he had the money. He said, well, I'm going to spend the money for this program, and I'm going to spend the money for this database, and I'm going to spend the money for this database, and I'm going to overlap them, and I'm going to target my people, and all of them showed up. Well, see, that's what they were, that's what that's all about. It's about Trump purchased through commerce what was being offered on the market to anybody to use. And they just don't like the fact that he's smart enough to put A and B together to get not only C, but all the way to Z. And that's this whole, these people doing Russian this or that, That's all hooey.
It's all contrived.
It's
Lotus, I don't want to get too deep into the politics, and I have to wrap it up soon. But I think it's really important that we bring this up, mostly because she's coming back around, folks. That's right. She's running for president again.
Liz. Hillary?
The witch queen.
Hillary says she's going to run for president again.
I think so.
What is her IQ? What's funny is you see the status quo really screaming. You see Comey saying, hey, okay, the Democrats are supposed to maintain posture. It's like, okay, have you ever been in a crowd and you're trying to move forward? Okay. You're in a big crowd and you're trying to... Right. You're let's say you're on the floor of a large arena, and you're trying to get to the front row, right?
I gotta get some food. I have to eat some food. I need sustenance.
In the back of the arena. But I get to the front row.
I'm serious. I really do. I think she's running for president again.
Well, you have Comey I think he's a registered Republican, begging the Democrats not to be socialist fascists. I mean, when in America? Yes, like he said. The quote is like, "Democrats don't lean too far." So like he's like, I mean,
oh my gosh. I laugh because I literally, I would be crying all the time, all day. Well,
I think there was something in the Democratic Party that we don't need Comey's endorsement or something like that. Like, you have Republicans, okay, and this is what people need to understand. Trump is not Republican or Democrat. He's a Republican because that's what anyone who owns a business runs under, because you just don't believe in the Democratic stance of overtaxing the people who create the economy if you own a business. And I can speak that to myself.
We have capitalism, right?
Right, capitalism is, I have a moral responsibility to care for my fellow man. I don't have a legal responsibility to subsidize your laziness. Okay, that's the point there. If you are a child, an infant, an insane, or an infirmed, I will pay to the hilt for your safety, security, and well-being, and that you have a cushy, nice life, that you never live in hell. I am willing to pay for that. Mm-hmm. I'm not willing to pay for any other class of people. Okay, I'm not. To sustain a life. Get off your butt, get a job, and in America, make a company, do what you do. Because even despite the fascism, you can still start your own company and do a lot of things. You have to pay the piper, and you're paying a tithe to a fascist system right now, but the principle there, the body is still there. This is going to be a blip in American history. America will be around for thousands of years, folks. Our construct of law is eternal. It speaks to nothing related to politics, religion, or anything. The foundations and the neutrality of our constructs of the fourth crown of law supersede and will persevere any form of decadence, despotism, tyranny, you name it, if followed to the T of the law. So we're going to be around. Mm-hmm. And I have no problem paying for the infant, the insane, and the infirmed to live wonderful, full, beautiful, clean, free, peaceful lives. Mm-hmm. I am not willing to pay for anybody else. Everybody else is on their own, and that's the law. And that's the only thing the law is there to shield. Those are the only three classes of people that I can be required by moral, and that, in my mind, those three classes of people should be morally guaranteed to be protected.
And I also want to bring up something really quick, and then I really do have to wrap it up because I have to get going. But tattoo ink, folks. Tattoo ink is no longer the organic octopus ink that your parents got when they went away to war. These tattoos and this new tattoo ink is programmable matter that can be remotely activated. Okay, people need to think about that. They need to think about if they can make a tattoo that can play back music on your iPhone. Okay, they can make these tattoos programmable and it can be remotely activated. This is weaponized tattoo ink. They don't need MK Ultra anymore. These are old modalities. So I just want to bring that up real quick because somebody was mentioning one of the tattoos that was created to be like a circuit board and to be interactive. This is weaponized, but I gotta wrap it up.
Well, let me say one thing. I say one thing to that. If you take that technology and you give it to righteous people, what a godsend and a heaven that would create. That's the point here, folks. We have a situation in our time where what we are able to do with what our ingenuity and capita, our intellectual incorporeal herediments create, can allow us to have anything we want and can allow us to manifest what we will with just tattoos on our skin. If evil men and women are in charge of that, then it becomes tyranny. And the system is designed that it's supposed to cleanse itself. Okay, it's supposed to cleanse itself of such people. And that's the only thing that needs to happen right now. When you tell me that, I'm like, that's creepy when I know who's in control. But if I remove them, I think, how amazing. That is incredible technology. I mean, think about that. That would allow a person, think about it, who was disabled in some way.
A lot of these technologies they're not initially developed to be weaponized, but that is what the state is going to use it as.
Lotus, and that's what change. I love you. We got to change that.
Yeah, I thank you so much for this enlightening conversation. It's always mind-bending.
Well, I appreciate your centrist. I appreciate and what's funny is you're centrist in my mind, as we talk about that. What's liberal now is just beyond the scope of liberal when I was younger, and it's extremism, folks. It really is, and even people,
Yeah, but it's no longer the liberal that we identify as liberal.
But torn that word too. That's not liberal. That's Bolshevism and fascism, and I'll call it out in a second. And feel free to sue me, folks. I would love someone to invite me into one of their courts of law with their crap. I would care.
Oh my God, Lotus. I don't know how you do it. You're a one-woman army. Army.
Hey, the fourth crown is all about the position of the power of the persecuted, and that's what Christ did. He gave us the power.
Woohoo! The power
of being unlawfully persecuted.
The power. Lotus, thank you so much. It's been another power.
Namaste.
All right, folks. Thank you so much for tuning in and participating in the live interactive chat board. Wow. It's been amazing. It was fun while it lasted. I'm going to close out the show with a Zeph Daniels song. This is called Witch Queen.
That'd be my wife.
I know. No, it'd be Hillary Clinton.
The moon rises above the blood-soaked crown. Knotted shadows groan as naked trees bow down before the unholy one. She walks a path untouched by prayer, unknown to comfort, a path given to anything but love. Along this way, the witch queen comes. The wind is cold, but the queen cares not. Stalking her world, inhaling souls long sought. The soldier's life leaking away, gazes with fogging eyes, praying his queen will say, "Worry not, brave one, your blessed ruler is here." Instead she breathes his final breath, leaving him to die, deserted in death. The sanctified ones, forced to kneel, allow the witch queen to reveal the horror of her fury in darkness apart. One nod wing to her minions and the godly weep. "I need more!" She screams and thunder booms at this demand. "Curse them! Longer! Louder! Make it more than they can stand!" The cup of blood raised to wicked lips pours down her throat till it runs over cheek and chin. The queen throws the goblet, wipes her mouth and cries, "I have no sin." Tiny toys for Her Majesty to explore. In her dead heart, they're nothing more. Innocents vanished by her touch, and then they die. So often they die, yet the queen never cries. Not for them, or the children never born, once torn and washed away. She feels them. Every ounce, every day. Yet the queen never cries, though like death's rigid mask, often she smiles. The witch queen walks the direction of the moon, as the wolves howl and the death birds croon. She takes her leave from the rim of this world